Everybody ready? Ready?
Yeah.
All right, listen.
It's your weekend show.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
With Bob Bierman.
It's great.
And welcome to your weekend show. I'm your host, Bob Bierman. I'm so glad that you've come by again this weekend to join in on the program. If you are new to your weekend show, let me tell you just a little bit about the program. I'll tell you more as we go through the hour together. This is a program about life, a program about current events, and trying to find ways we together can sort things out and move forward in sometimes very difficult periods in our life and difficult periods in our nation and our world. So that's kind of the premise of the program. I have been in radio for more years than I care to discuss, and I've spent almost 20 years in ministry. So I bring things from a unique perspective. I'm also a broadcast engineer by trade, so I tend to be kind of common sense, and I guess the word they like to use is pragmatic. Be that as it may. I enjoy doing this program. It's been a vision of mine for a number of years to just share from the heart the things that I see and hope that you can reflect with me on how we can make our lives better and more productive, more useful, and in the end, even more enjoyable. If you want to find out about the program, I invite you to go to our website, yourweekendshow.com. That's yourweekendshow.com. And, of course, you can find us on Facebook, and we're there at Your Weekend Show as well. We've been getting a lot of likes, and I'd like to get some more this week, if you don't mind. And I do notice, and for those that listen via shortwave, I have a bunch of QSL cards I need to get out pretty soon. There was a little glitch in the email, and a bunch of people that have been replying from around the country and the world for a QSL card. I didn't get them until just recently, so we got that problem straightened out. So we're looking forward to letting you people know around the world that you picked us up on either 5850 kilohertz or 7455 kilohertz or 9395 kilohertz, the three channels that we're on with WRMI. So if you're listening by shortwave, it means the world to tell me that you have listened, and just go to the website and you can click on a QSL report online. We'll get back to you. So we really enjoy looking at where the program is heard. A matter of fact, we are now heard, I believe they told me that we've had response out of Thailand. We've had response out of Pakistan, Israel, England, Spain, parts of Africa, all over Canada, the United States, and we're thrilled. We are thrilled that this program is getting out and reaching so many people, and so I'm excited to be able to share that. Saw a story the other day, and boy, did it bring back some memories of a good friend. And let me give you just a little bit of background. I worked in radio in Sarasota, Florida for several years while also pastoring a church in that town. And for a while, I actually managed a small AM radio station that was going through some, shall we say, changes at the time. And with my broadcast experience and engineering experience, I was able to get the radio station back on the air. And beginning in, I think, February of 2002, the station went on the air again. It had been off for a little while. And I put together what we called a friendly talk radio station. In other words, you didn't have to worry about the content with children listening. In other words, we were friendly talk for a reason. We tried to give advice in life and just good quality programming. If you've ever heard of a person by the name of Clark Howard, who does a financial help program and travel and everything else, very popular. He started out at a radio station in Atlanta, was syndicated, and he became very popular with some just excellent advice. We had him on that station. For a while, we had Dr. Laura. When the Clear Channel stations abandoned her back around 2001, we were able to pick her up and have her on our station. We had a guy named Joey Reynolds, who was a New York announcer who did a syndicated show out of New York City from midnight till about 6. Excellent program. Just laid back, relaxed listening. And we had a number of other programs like that. And matter of fact, the original morning show that I used for a while was a syndicated show that originated out of a diner in Massachusetts, the Shawmut Diner. And the host on that program was Phil Palilogos, and it did a great job. But as the station grew, the decision was made to move it from the location we had it kind of secretly buried, so to speak, and give it a nice studio on Main Street in downtown Sarasota. And I started working on the construction of those studios. I'm trying to remember when, probably in late 2003, getting ready to move to the downtown studios in Sarasota. About that time, we got word that the morning show we were carrying was going to be discontinued. So we had been debating what to do with these showcase studios. I mean, we have a window on Main Street in Sarasota, and the decision was made to put together a morning show. Well, that morning show consisted of myself, a good friend of mine, Doug Miles, who still lives in Sarasota, does some media work and some radio. And we had a board operator, young gal by the name of, her air name was Jessica Sky. She was in her 20s, very cute gal and very intelligent. And we put together a program that was called the Suncoast Morning Magazine. And we had our own website. We had some great guests on that program. I mean, we had just a treasure trove of people we could pick up. You know, one of the Smothers brothers lived right in town. Bobby Vinton just comes to mind, and dozens of others, including politicians and the like. They would come to Sarasota, a very beautiful town, especially in the wintertime, and we just had plenty of guests ready to go. Program was, lighthearted, not too heavy on the news. We did sports. We talked about, I didn't, Doug did. He was the expert on sports, and just general conversation and a whole lot of fun. And that show originated on that station. There was even a live afternoon program. So for quite a while, a little over a year, I think, not quite a year, I was the host along with Doug Miles of the Suncoast Morning Magazine. Like I say, Doug is still in the business in Sarasota. Jessica, I will tell you, she moved on shortly thereafter and ended up getting married several years later to a wonderful, godly husband. And she now raises a very beautiful daughter who looks just like her. So she has done very well in life, and it's nice to be able to keep in touch with good friends. Well, let me kind of continue the story here. We had started our program, and for a while we were followed by Dr. Laura, and a person came along looking for airtime, and the station decided to give this individual some airtime by the name of Rochelle Herman. Now, maybe you've heard the name so far if you've watched some TV this week, maybe not. But I'm going to tell you about Rochelle, and also a good friend of mine. She started doing a program on the radio station that followed ours. And shortly after she started, and things had changed in my family, as you may have known from prior broadcasts, my late wife had cancer. And during that time, she was in a remission period, and I felt that I needed to spend more time with her. The church I was pastoring was growing, and so time was limited. And so I left the morning show, and I think it dissolved shortly thereafter to something else. But Rochelle did a program on the radio station in Sarasota for many, many years. And in the course of doing her work and having guests and interviews, there were a lot of celebrities that come through the fair city of Sarasota, Florida. And one of those people that came by to be involved, I think, like for the Heart Society walk or things of that nature, was Jared Fogle. And you may have heard that name in the news of late. He has pled guilty to some pretty incredibly sad charges involving sex with minors. He was the spokesperson for a number of years, having lost a tremendous amount of weight by eating Subway sandwiches. And so he was a celebrity. And of course, Rochelle had him as a guest on her program. And in conversations with Jared, she noticed there was just something very, I think the word she uses, creepy about this guy. There was just something very wrong with him in the way he would talk about children and young teenage girls, and like an infatuation that was just not normal. And she became deeply concerned over the time that she talked to him, and finally decided one day to have a conversation with law enforcement, ultimately the FBI. See, Jared lived out of state, but he would travel to a lot of places. And she just thought there was something terribly wrong. And so for a number of years, she would wear a wire and when they would talk. And for 10 years, the federal government built up a case against Jared Fogle for what he had done with children and youth. And she recently was finally able to discuss what had happened now that the charges were filed and the guilty plea has been made. She started on the local TV station in Sarasota, which is, I think they call it ABC 7 and on cable, and Channel 40 originally over the air, but they call it ABC 7, WWSB in Sarasota. She's been on Good Morning America. She's been on Inside Edition, and she's going to be on a whole number of TV programs over the coming days, sharing her story about how she was one of the informants. And there were other women that also picked up on this and were also involved in the process. It took 10 years, which is kind of mind-boggling. And now Jared Fogle faces, 5 to 12 years in prison, and for doing things to children. I don't think that's near enough. I really don't. I mean, children are so precious. I mean, they're a gift from the Lord. And what he did to destroy their innocence is just hard to fathom. How people can be that sick, be that callous, be that cruel. But in Jared's case, he definitely was. And he has pled guilty in a plea deal. And she shared the story about what she calls in Jared this monster. And when I think about it, and I've seen it in my ministry, and I've seen some of the horrible things that adults do to young children, I've had situations very close to home that are like that have broken my heart, and it just, sometimes you wonder, can justice ever be really served in these cases? I commend Rochelle for what she did. She's a hero. For calling out this horrible crime and not just ignoring it like so many people, I'm afraid, would do. There are people that would literally ignore it. I mean, think about that for a second. It's not my problem. Those aren't my children. Why should I want to get involved? I think if you're a Christian, you have to get involved. We have to get involved. We've seen so many terrible things occur in our nation that just tears our moral fabric and stretches it so thin. And I believe that God's judgment is coming soon upon this nation, and we'll be talking about that during this program as well. But I want to commend Rochelle. And I know she's had a difficult time in recent years. She was involved in a terrible auto accident, which has really caused her severe injuries, and she's had multiple surgeries and deals with pain, and I know she's been struggling. And I would like to ask the listeners to this program. I mean, here's a gal that really, she took the risk to be the informant for the FBI, to see that justice was finally, or at least somewhat, done. And now she suffers so much in her own personal life. So I would ask the audience here to keep Rochelle in your prayers. If you Google Rochelle Herman, you will find out more about her, and you can see the news stories in the various outlets. They're pretty accurate. Some are a little off, but she was not exactly a reporter. She actually was a host of a radio show. Some have got that confused, but in essence, the story is accurate, and I would encourage you to go to those sites, and maybe even you'll find a way to contact her, to send her a note of encouragement and tell them you heard about her on your weekend show, and her former radio compadre from Sarasota. So I wish her my best blessings, and I hope that God will just touch her and give her some peace and healing. But I think about the children we have in this world today. They are a gift from God, and not a day or a week goes by that I don't see some story of cruelty to children by parents or step-parents or relatives or strangers. And why? How can people be so cruel to children is beyond me.